one unexpected moment can shatter prejudice, rewrite destinies, and remind America what compassion really looks like. Then hit subscribe right now, because this story will stay with you long after the screen goes dark, and you don't want to miss stories that change how you see people, power, and purpose. This is the story of a billionaire father who thought he understood control, success, and strength until the night he watched a black waitress gently let his disabled son lead a single dance step, and in doing so transformed not just a boy's life, but his own forever. The night began like every other tightly choreographed moment in Richard Halstead's life, precise, expensive, and emotionally distant, as the self-made tech billionaire arrived at the Grand Centennial Hotel ballroom in downtown Chicago for a charity gala bearing his family name, a glittering event meant to honor innovation and resilience. Words Richard admired in theory, but rarely practiced in his personal life, especially with his son Evan, who sat stiffly in his custom wheelchair beside him, Evan's legs immobile since a childhood accident that Richard never talked about without his jaw tightening, his eyes flicking away as if guilt itself were contagious. And Evan, now 22, had grown up surrounded by money, private tutors, elite doctors, and yet starved for something simpler, something his father had never learned to give freely: patience, presence, permission to be imperfect. And as Richard shook hands with senators and CEOs, Evan watched people look at him with that familiar mixture of pity and politeness, the way smiles faltered just a second too long, the way conversations bent around him like he was fragile glass, and he hated it, but had learned to endure it, because endurance was the only thing his father had ever taught him without words. The gala rolled on with speeches and applause and waitstaff weaving silently between tables, and that's when Maya entered Evan's awareness. Not because she was loud or flashy, but because she was real. A black woman in her late 20s with tired eyes and a warmth that didn't ask permission, balancing a tray of drinks as she moved through the crowd with practiced grace. And when she reached their table, she didn't look at Evan's chair first, didn't lean in with exaggerated sympathy. She just smiled at him like she would at anyone else and asked, "Sparkling or still?" And something in Evan's chest loosened, and he had answered, "Still, please," surprised by his own voice sounding normal, not small. Richard barely noticed the exchange, too busy checking his phone, but Maya noticed Evan's fingers tapping lightly against the armrest in time with the soft jazz playing in the background. And when she returned with his drink, she said quietly, "You like this song?" And Evan nodded, a little embarrassed, admitting, "Yeah, I used to dance before everything." And Maya's smile didn't fade, didn't turn sad, it widened. "Music remembers us," she said, "even when other people forget." And she moved on, leaving Evan staring after her, heart racing like he'd just been given a secret. Later in the evening, security guards rushed in not to help, but to restrain him, hands grabbing his shoulders, shoving him back as if he were the threat, as if he hadn't just saved a life, while Lily lay motionless on the tile, her skin pale, her lips blue. And it wasn't until Marcus screamed at them to call 911 that anyone moved with purpose. And even then it was slow, clumsy, delayed, because panic doesn't look good in front of donors. And Marcus dropped to his knees beside Lily, ignoring the guards pulling at his jacket, pressing his hands to her chest, remembering the CPR training his high school coach forced the team to learn, even though Marcus never got to play in real games because he had to work after school. And he counted out loud, voice shaking but steady enough to lead, pushing, breathing, praying, until finally Lily's body convulsed and she coughed up water, gasping like she'd just been reborn, and the sound of it cut through the crowd like lightning. But instead of gratitude, the first thing Marcus heard was Richard Harrington shouting, demanding to know who let this kid near his daughter, his voice filled with rage, not relief. And when Lily's eyes fluttered open and she saw Marcus hovering over her, drenched and shaking, she reached out weakly and grabbed his sleeve as if he were the only solid thing left in a world that had just betrayed her. And that simple gesture, that grip, would become the seed of a storm that would tear through wealth, prejudice, power, and lies in ways no one at that mansion could have imagined. Because while the ambulance wailed toward the hospital and Marcus sat handcuffed in the back of a security car accused of trespassing, while his father begged guards to let his son explain, and while social media began to buzz with half-recorded videos and distorted narratives, the truth was already slipping away. And the real twist wasn't that a janitor's son saved a millionaire's daughter. It was that the people with everything were about to reveal how little humanity they truly had. And Lily, lying in a hospital bed that night, staring at the ceiling while machines beeped around her, would make a decision that would change Marcus's life forever, even if it meant turning against her own father. Because when you survive drowning, you learn exactly who let you sink in the first place. If you want me to continue immediately with part 2, where the accusations escalate, the media turns on Marcus, and Lily uncovers a devastating family secret tied to her disability, say the word, and I'll keep going until the full 5,000-plus word story is complete.